Good afternoon, everybody. Deborah McKenzie here with the McKenzie Network. How are you folks doing? Hope everyone is having a beautiful day wherever you're at. We are doing a series, a little mini series on careers from home. And we have different guests every day coming on with all different topics to help you with your business at whatever level you are. Maybe you're just a startup, you left work, you decided, hey, I'm going to work from home. Maybe you're that big CEO, has that huge company, and you're like, why do I even need to go back in the office? And why do my employees need to go back in the office? So we're going to have some great success stories, great tips. Look forward to you watching all of them. You can watch the replay. We are on TV, but you can watch the replay on the McKenzieNetwork.com. And our first guest today, this lady, I have to tell you, I've been doing business with her for quite a while. I've watched her success. I've seen her kids grow to levels, little entrepreneurs themselves. And I've seen her start with starting out from inventions to her and her husband coming together. And now they're doing something really huge in the podcast world that is really helping individuals reach that next level. So it is with great pleasure that I was able to get Miss Tracy Hazzard on today. And Tracy, thank you so much. Where are you living at these days?
Thanks for having me, Deb. I'm so excited to be here. And, I am coming to you from my home office. Absolutely. My home office in Irvine, California. So I'm right in Orange County, that OC that everybody talks about, not quite the side of the OC that you see on TV. We're on the mountainside.
Great. Well, Tracy, again, thank you for taking some time. You're just a really special guest. I only had a few slots and I really looked at who would be the best for this series, and you were one of the top folks to bring on. So Tracy, can you just tell us a little bit about your background before you started working from home, and maybe a little bit how you started working from home, kind of your business, kind of what you went to and why you decided to do podcasting. When did you notice this coming into the mainstream?
Well, my career has been in office as well as out of office, right? So it's followed that whole trajectory. I'm one of those lucky people who's actually, and for the most part, practicing what I went to college for, what I absolutely wanted to do in a certain way. So I went to art school. I went to Rhode Island School of Design. I met my husband my first day of college, and we got married before college ended. But so I'm still practicing design and innovation and innovative thinking. I'm not practicing textile design, which is what I have an actual degree in. But I did go to Milliken. I worked for Milliken Company, which is one of the largest textile manufacturers in the world. And I worked for Herman Miller, one of the largest office furniture manufacturers in the world, who have amazing innovation stance. And it taught me about the model of looking at something and deciding if it was worth pursuing. But what I really learned is that it's worth pursuing it if you take it at the right pace. And that means to me that you sit back and you say, I might, do this as a side gig. I might, try this out and see if it's worth doing. And so that's always been our process. Tom and I, Tom Hazzard, my husband, and we, for almost 30 years of our marriage, have worked together on and off. And we pretty much start an entity in our home, always. And we're doing that because we want to bootstrap it, but we also want to make sure it's worth pursuing. Because if we're doing this together, we're risking our family stability. So right. We need to be sure this is worth pursuing. And so how can we do that in the lowest cost possible? And it just doesn't make sense for us for all the types of businesses we've done, with the exception of one where I had a retail store. So you physically needed a store to make it go. But that's the only exception on that particular one. But all of them started as a home-based business. Mm-hmm. Tested them out and see if they would work. Podcasting is no different. So I had just had a baby, my last one, and she's 7 now. And so so 7 years ago, we started a podcast because we wanted to test out an idea about a business entity that we wanted to try, which was in 3D printing. So our podcast was about 3D printing. And we tested that out by using the podcast to see if we could attract an audience, to see if people are interested in this topic. What we found out quickly was people were extremely interested in this topic. We ended up with 100,000 within 100,000 listeners, really, because that's what you would call them, but 100,000 listeners and subscribers within 6 months. So we had a really fast ramp up there. But what we discovered is that they didn't want to buy the products or services we had planned. So it's a really good thing we didn't just jump into that expensive entity that we would have had to create to start that business. Instead, we tested it out. And we discovered in that process that people were just shoving credit cards at us and asking us to produce their podcast, that we discovered a whole side business that we didn't know we had. And so for almost 2.5 years, we tested the business model in my other entity that we had started the podcast in before I turned it into its own entity. So in 2017, we became Brandcasters Inc., which is podetize.com as its front-facing brand. And so that brand is also a trademark. So that's also really important. So Podetize is the name everybody knows. Brandcasters Inc. is the company underneath it. But we started that in 2017. And now we have a, 7-figure, almost 8-figure business. And it's valued at much, much more. And we have, 1,000 people we've helped launch their podcasts, and we produce their episodes, their videos, all of these things that we do. And those services have expanded, but at the demand of our clients. And yet still, we've not moved out of our home office yet because there hasn't been a need yet.
I think that's really smart. And one thing you brought up, and this is something I think that a lot of people do, they get excited and they want to start their company up, and they get caught up in this, and one coach is going to offer me this, and one person's going to offer me this, and they have so much money, and before they know it, the money's gone because they're spending on all this stuff that, all these products and services that people say, hey, this is, I'm going to get you here, I'm going to get you there. So I like the fact, instead of going out and getting a brick and mortar and getting set up and doing this, is to really test the market, see if it's a good fit. If it's a great fit, then go with it and let it expand and grow. They say that it takes 3 to 5 years to really get a business up and running and get it going. So those of you out there that are at a place right now and you're sitting here going, I don't know if I should keep this going. I don't know. I've been doing this for 6 months to a year. Don't give up. It's not time to give up yet.
It's too soon, right?
And I know that we've been connected for many years in different networking groups. One of the big ones I've been a part of for the last 5 years, that's 32 years old, is CO Space, and that I believe is where I met you. Yeah. And I'm curious, I've been to different events. I see you all over. You're everywhere. I mean, any event I go to, any podcast, anything live, you're always on it. How would you say that networking and connecting with people, getting referrals has helped your business grow? And what could you say to somebody who isn't experienced, doesn't know where to begin with that?
Well, this is the thing. I have to thank my podcast for getting me everywhere. So the reality is that without the podcast, I didn't have the level of authority in the marketplace to get those kind of speaking events. So I started our 3D print podcast. We were doing really well. It was getting noticed in an industry I had no traction or credibility in 3D printing, right? And I got invited to speak at an event in LA. I go and I speak at an event in LA talking about something that I'm an expert in, which is setting pricing for design and for, things that are not as easy to price. And I give the speech, and the publisher of the Inc. magazine's innovation section saw me there and said, I'd love to offer you a column. So now I got a column. So now I'm a podcaster and I'm a columnist. Those two things basically opened every speech door I can imagine for the next few years. And now I don't even write the column anymore, but people still call me an ink columnist. Like, it just, so those things just happened because I built this authority level. And really at the end of the day, for me, is what it is that I show up day after day, whether it's giving speeches, doing my podcast, doing guest interviews like this, whatever it is, I'm going to show up day after day, and I'm going to give you value that you're going to walk away with and say, that really resonated with me. I got something from that. And I will continue to do that. And it won't be the same thing every time. I never give the same speech twice. I never answer the same question the same way again. I don't do it because every situation is different. Your audience here at the McKinsey Network is different. And I want to make sure to give them the value that they're looking for in the context of what we're talking about. And so I am always adjusting that and making sure that I'm bringing that value. And that value always leads me to the next speech, to the next offer, to the next thing that's going to come my way. And that's how I do it. It's simply, I just keep going and doing that. Now, there are cases where the networking and relationship building have also grown and helped me tremendously, right? Because I deliver what I say I'm going to deliver, my clients refer me. We have spent $0. Now we're about to, I should say, up to this point though, we spent $0 on marketing. So we built an entire, multi-million-dollar company. We built that all off of referrals from our clients. That's it.
I love it.
And that's because we did what we said we were going to do, right? So when I deliver on what I say I'm going to do at a speech, then I'm going to get the next one. So that networking and relationship, I'm a value to my network. So they want me in it. And that just leads to the next network they offer. Someone's in that network and they belong somewhere else. And they said, hey, you should come speak to our event and you should come join our network. And that's how it just moves. And the other thing is I'm not stuck. I don't like to stay stuck. I love to meet people. I'm a people person. I thrive off of that. I'm an extrovert. And so being around other people gives me energy and I give them energy back. And because of that, it just makes it really easy for me to expand my network at all times.
Right. Something I wonder too about is this, when we were in lockdown, all of us with the pandemic here, and right now we're moving about. I know I'm going to an event next week and things, but if heaven forbid something, we were ever in a lockdown again in this, in this situation, we all were scrambling, trying to figure out how we're going to save our company, our business. Most of us were in that place. I know everyone I was talking to was, especially those that go speak and do engagements and things. And we've seen Zoom be a huge impact, and never even knew we would use Zoom the way we do. However, what have you seen during this last year with some of your clients and their business growing, even in your business? I know that it has grown because it's in a different space, but what have you noticed about working from home now, even more so than before?
Well, so the way this happened for us is that, we dialed this in so that our clients could be flexible no matter where they were in the world, whether they were traveling. A lot of our clients are really busy business owners. And so they're traveling all over the place. They need a podcast from a hotel. So we designed our whole system for how we teach them to podcast, how we help them podcast, and what we do to make everything basically transportable, mobile, simple. You don't need a studio. You don't need all this complexity in the process. So it was designed for that. So our clients were poised and ready. I don't think we lost one or two clients in the course of 2020. So we have an industry. In the industry, there's 2 million podcasts in the marketplace. So 2 million podcasts are published in Apple or Spotify or wherever you're looking, but only 250,000 of them are what we call active podcasters. Everybody else has pod faded. They quit their show. They did 1 to 21 episodes somewhere in there and they quit it. And so that pod-based statistic of 87% quit rate is not what's apparent on my platform. We have less than a 7% year-over-year attrition rate. So wow. People don't quit their podcast because it's working for their business and it works for their lifestyle and it's set in a strategic way to work for them. So our clients didn't stop. In fact, the pandemic starts, things start locking down. Tom and I are actually sick in bed. So we went to an event. We came home from a 1,000-person event in Florida, came home, got COVID within days. We're sick in bed the first week. We didn't even know the state of California locked everything down because we hadn't turned on the TV or anything. One of our kids comes home from school and we aren't even communicating with our own children. They're like, my oldest daughter's taking care of them. And so we didn't even know, but my kids both get sick later in the week. So all of them get sick as well. But that one doesn't come to school. A friend delivers her backpack and says, we don't have any more school anymore. Like that was it. That was how we found out. So, we're still trying to get up out of our beds to answer the phone because our clients are not panicking, but they're like, I want to buy a bigger package. I want to double down. I need to do more episodes. What should I do? And so we were just trading off who's the least sick to answer phone calls. So for 2 weeks, we did that. We just traded off who was well enough to answer a call, and we kept going. And that's exactly our model for how we did everything in the pandemic. We didn't panic. We didn't change our model of what we were doing. We went and said, this is working. So we're going to share it with more people so that they can understand that this is working. And our business just picked up from there because more and more people started podcasting. Now, here's the difference. I think the reason why so many have dropped off podcasting was they started it in the pandemic when they have more time. Now their businesses are picking back up again and they dropped podcasting. And that's a mistake in your strategy and setup of your podcast. It should be integral, because if you've dropped it, then either the podcast wasn't working for you or you think your business can live without it. And that's a mistake, because the next time something happens, you're not going to be prepared. And my clients are going to be prepared.
Why do you think everybody listen? Why do you think there's so many people nowadays listening to podcasts? And what is it that's different about that even than the radio? What would you say about that?
Well, I mean, in for certain aspects of it, it's the last bastion of free speech, because they can't edit. Spotify can decide not to air your show altogether, but you still have a feed. No matter what, you have the ability to publish that on any network of your own. Right? You can publish it anywhere. It's a feed, what they call an RSS feed. And so you're syndicated instantly by having that feed. Now, it's great if you can get into Spotify and if you can get into Apple, and they do have restrictions on what they allow, but they don't regulate it. As long as you're marked explicit or as long as you're marked properly, they usually let it go, because it's a opt-in choice. You have a choice as a listener to listen to me. I didn't force you to listen because it was all that was available on the air. You chose to subscribe to me. So it's obviously you want what I have. I'm not pushing it out to you. And because of that, it's left alone as a free speech entity. And we believe that really strongly here at Podetize. There are lots of podcast networks who won't air shows that, have anything to do with sex or pornography or addictions or other things like that. We don't restrict here. You can podcast about whatever you want. Will you be successful with it? I can't guarantee that. Right. That's not something that I'm going to guarantee. Right. And I'm not going to promote you like that. That's not what we do anyway. We teach you how to promote yourself. And so that you will be able to be self-sufficient. You will be able to get into the community that you want. So that's one of the reasons I think podcasting is really appealing. It's not in that over-controlled, because most people don't have advertisers. So there's no one censoring from that perspective. So you're bringing stories out, you're bringing ideas out, you're bringing messaging out. But at the end of the day, if you don't have a good podcast, you don't have one that's giving value, that's got great stories, that's really interesting, you're also not going to make it. People are going to just give up on your show and stop listening. Yeah. So there isn't, so it's also self-correcting from a marketplace standpoint. And that's why it's really good. But the biggest difference I hear from everyone all the time is that I'm in their ear. So it's better than video. Podcasts are typically consumed 70% or more of their content on average is consumed. There's only about less than a minute of video consumed on average on YouTube videos. So, they're not really getting everything. They may be viewing your video and it counts as a view in YouTube, but they may have only saw a minute. They didn't see the whole thing, right? With a podcast, your download doesn't, your downloads count, but your plays don't count unless someone plays more than 10% through. So you're getting these issues of like, is this real? There's a lot of reality here to the podcasting marketplace and how it functions. And I frankly think that the number one thing also is that podcast is just convenient, right? It's radio on demand when I want to hear it, not when you want to play it. And, we all love on-demand TV. We all love on-demand this, but it's also bingeable, just like Netflix, right? I can binge on a podcast and listen to every episode. I have a whole show called The Binge Factor, right? And we're really analyzing for how to get your show to be right for binge listeners. Because when someone binges on you and listens to 100 of your episodes, they're going to buy everything you recommend, right? So this is how you build a business.
I love it. I think it's so important. So quick, I like to talk about reality when we're talking about working from home. Let's just be real. We're sitting at our kitchen table and we've got kids running underneath us, behind us. We might be working on our bed, talking with people on the phone, walk outside. We just don't know. And you have 3 children. And what I love about Tracy and her husband, Tom, is that they bring their kids in to work with them. Their daughter runs the company with them. And also
our oldest one, let's be really careful. Yeah. No, I have 3, but the oldest one. Yeah.
So she's involved with the company, but not only that, the little girls are too. And one of them, I was at an event and she was selling, and she had her own website and everything, little masks. And what was she, like 5 or 6 or I forget.
They're not face masks, not like the ones we're wearing now. Eye masks, like the ones to help you sleep.
Eye mask to help you sleep. And I actually still use my Superman one. I love it. But what would you suggest to parents to help with that work balance when they're getting their business going? Because it's really easy for us just to work 24 hours as entrepreneurs nonstop. What would you say to the family to keep that time and keep those relationships and everything flowing?
Well, first things first is you don't have to do all this yourself, right? Like this is a village here. We are definitely a village here. So my oldest daughter does run the company with us. She's the COO. She's married. Her husband has helped us out through the pandemic when we had children at home learning. He was overseeing that. When they went to school, he was doing the driving back and forth because they had like modified schedules that were just insanely crazy in the middle of the afternoon when we would normally have appointments and coaching calls and things like that. So, we did this as a family, right? And that makes a big difference. I don't believe in balance. And that's something that I've really learned over the 30 years working with my husband, is that we don't believe in balance at all. Balance is momentary. It's not sustainable. Whether you're, doing a yoga pose and you're standing on one leg, you can only do that so long, no matter how good you are at this, right? It's not a sustainable move. So we look at everything that we do as harmonious, as harmony in our family. So everyone has roles to play, different instruments that they play, different skill sets that work for them. And we need to play to those strengths, give them their opportunity to shine and have a solo, whether it's like the drum solo, the trumpet solo, whatever it might be, right? And we have to allow people to have the high notes and the low notes, because some days we're just not capable of handling anything, right? And so we have to pick up for each other along the process. And so that's what we practice as a family. It's what we practice in our business as well, and what we build into how we staff it. And I have 87 employees around the world who all work from home. So the 3 of us here, my husband, my daughter, and I are the only ones in the home office, right? And so we each also have our own spaces in there. We don't do the dining table. We don't do the bed. We discovered over time that we were working together in an office, and over the pandemic, because the amount of phone calls increased to such a high intensity that everyone needed to be on the phone at the same time, that we had to get into a bigger house. So we got into a bigger house and we all split up, and now we have extra rooms. So we each have a room that we're in. And so what you're seeing me in is my home office room, and it has a door and everything. And so I can shut the door. When my door is shut, my kids know not to interrupt me. They are trained, right? So my younger 2 are 12 and 7, and they are trained to understand when the Zoom light is on and they can peek. And if they see the little red recording light on, they're not to say a word. And they know that. And if they get a flat, like don't bother me, they're in trouble for even like interrupting the space. So they've learned like what the boundaries are, but they know the minute that goes off, if they need our attention, they've got it. Yeah. And so that's kind of how we do it. We do it as a family. We operate it as with everyone respecting the boundaries of what we need to accomplish our work, because that's in the best interests of the family as well. And so because of that, this just really works well for us. And, the other thing is strict rules don't apply to us either. So Tom and I learned early on that if we said we're not going to discuss business after 5 p.m., it was a losing proposition for us, because our innovation, our design, the ideas don't come to you between 9 and 5. It just doesn't, or 8 and 5, whatever your hours are. Tom's a morning person. He does know that if he tries to talk to me at 6 a.m., I'm not going to be coherent and I'm not going to get what he says. So we've learned how to communicate to each other, but we've also learned that it can happen outside of business hours. And that's absolutely okay, unless one of us is like, I've had too much today and I can't deal with this. And as long as we communicate that with each other, they know, okay, now's not the time. I'll table it. I'll save it for later, because I want us to have a good interplay and discussion and move our business forward and do this. So because of that, lots of people, that's overwhelming, thinking that that could be 24/7. It's never 24/7, because we respect each other's boundaries of time and how we're feeling and what that's going on. And we optimize it though, but it might happen on a Saturday or a Sunday. And hey, we're way ahead of the next person who only is working during the work hours with their team. Right.
I love that. I love that. And one thing too, audience, to look at is this is a full entrepreneur family. The husband and wife are teamed up. They're working together. So this is a suggestion in that situation. However, a lot of times you do not have that.
You do not have that, right? Yeah, we have that. It's different.
Yeah. So it is a different dynamic. Whereas if you're coming home, you might have a spouse that, is helpful and wants to help, but they want their time in the evening, or they have their schedule and they want the family unit to be together at a certain time. So because it's very easy when you're both working on the same page, but this isn't reality for everybody out there.
No, and it's not. And I'm talking specifically about how we've managed to make this work for us. But at the end of the day, we read each other really well and respect our boundaries for each other. So, some days it's just not a good day to talk to each other about things. So days can go by where clients will go, "Oh, didn't Tom tell you?" I'll be like, "No, we haven't talked in days," because it just didn't happen, because what was going on outside of the work hours just wasn't conducive to us having that conversation. So you do have to respect that. The kids have to understand it too. So our family understands that this business is going somewhere very specific, that we have a great responsibility to our clients whose businesses rely on us to deliver for them. And all of that responsibility comes with a level of acceptance among us as a family. And that's okay. But we get it. They understand it, and they don't feel jilted, because, Vanessa and I, my youngest, we have a reading time together every day. We have the dance party before bed every night. So there are the things they can count and, and be present when it's time for them. And that's it. They never feel like we're not listening to them. We're not present for them when the time is right. If they interrupt at the wrong time, they know they're not going to get it.
Perfect. Well, I appreciate that because I think that there's a lot of people in the audience that will appreciate just having some guidance. Some of them might have kids behind them right now, and as they're doing business and things like that. But Tracy, I just wanted to thank you so much today. You've offered so much insight on the world of podcasting. And I know that you are offering a special, you do have different package levels for that people can join and get involved in. So we're not going to go over all of that right now, but I would, you are offering a free consultation, correct, to anybody that has watched the McKinsey Network, and just to dive in with them and see where they at, and if it's a good fit for them, if it's really truly, and they're really committed to doing it and it makes sense for them. So
absolutely, you can go to the McKinsey Network. You'll have both a discount code for should you decide to buy from us, and there will also be the link to being able to book a coaching call or really an audit call. That's what we kind of call it. It's a review call. Is the show you have planned right? Is it going to work for you? Is it something worth pursuing? Or if you already have a show and you want us to audit and review it, we can do that as well. So it can go from already being an existing podcaster who wants to take it up a level, or being someone brand new who'd like to start one. So happy to offer that to everyone. There's all the links at the McKinsey Network.
Thank you so much. And again, guys, our motto here at the McKinsey Network is every relationship makes an impact. Thank you, and we'll see you for our next show very soon.